Right before walking down the aisle, my fiancé's sister sneered, "You'll never be the woman he loves most. I'll always come first." My fiancé laughed and whispered, "She's right, you know." I smiled and said, "Enjoy the wedding," then I walked out and straight into the limo with his biggest secret. So, I was supposed to get married last weekend. Everything was set: the Plaza Hotel, a 6-figure wedding, a Vera Wang dress, hundreds of guests, months of planning, thousands of little details checked and double-checked. And I left not because I got cold feet, not because I had doubts, but because 10 minutes before walking down the aisle, I realized the man I was about to marry was a complete joke. Let's start from the beginning. My fiancé, Nate, and I had been together for 4 years. We met in New York, both working in finance, both ambitious, both wanting the perfect life. I thought we were on the same page. I thought he was my person. I should have known better. The first red flag was his sister, Allison. She had zero boundaries, and when I say zero, I mean she was practically his second girlfriend. She would sit in his lap at family gatherings. She would jokingly refer to herself as the most important woman in his life. She had a meltdown when she found out I was moving in with him. She would openly say things like, "I don't think Nate should ever get married. He's meant to be free." At first, I told myself it was just an overprotective sibling thing. Some families are just weirdly close. I figured once Nate and I got engaged, she'd back off. She didn't. If anything, she got worse. The second red flag was that Nate never really shut it down. He would laugh it off, say she was kidding, tell me I was being too sensitive whenever I got uncomfortable. Even when I pointed out how strange it was that his sister threw a fit when he canceled dinner with her because we had plans, he shrugged and said, "That's just how she is." Looking back, that should have been enough, but love makes you stupid. Then there was the money situation. I knew Nate had expensive taste, designer suits, fancy watches, first-class flights, private clubs, but I thought he could afford it. I mean, we worked in finance, we made good money. But something always felt off, like the time his credit card got declined at Cipriani, and he laughed and said, "Oh, I must have hit my limit," or the time we were supposed to split the cost of a vacation, and at the last minute, he asked me to put it on my card. "I'll pay you back," he said. He never did. I convinced myself it wasn't a big deal, that maybe he was just bad with budgeting. I even offered to help him organize his finances once, and he brushed it off. The truth was, I had no idea where his money was really coming from until 2 weeks before the wedding. I was at a work event, a charity gala at the Met, when I met a man named Bradley Peters. We got to talking. I mentioned I was getting married soon. He asked who my fiancé was. I told him. His expression changed immediately. Nate's last name is me, he said. "Do you know him?" Brad laughed. "Yeah, I know him." He pulled out his phone, scrolled for a second, and then showed me a picture. It was a selfie of him and Nate on a yacht in Ibiza. That wasn't the shocking part. The shocking part was Nate sitting on his lap. My stomach dropped. I forced myself to keep my face neutral. "How do you know him?" Brad smiled. "He didn't tell you we've been involved for a while now?" I thought I was going to throw up. Brad must have seen my face because he immediately went, "Oh my God, you didn't know." I shook my head. Then he looked genuinely pissed. Apparently, Brad had been funding Nate's entire lifestyle for the past 3 years: rent, travel, clothes, expensive dinners, everything, and Nate had led him to believe that I knew, that I was okay with it. "Wait, so you guys are together?" I asked, still in complete shock. Brad said, "Not exactly. I mean, yeah, we've been close, but he made it sound like it was an arrangement that you were on board." I was shaking. 2 weeks before our wedding, and I found out my fiancé was someone's sugar baby, and he let me think he was just a rich guy who made some bad spending choices. Brad was livid. He nodded at me, at Nate. "He lied to both of us," he said. "That's cute." I don't know why, but I laughed. Maybe because it was so insane that my brain just refused to process it. And that's when Brad said, "What do you want to do about it?" An idea started forming. I kept my mouth shut. I acted completely normal in the days leading up to the wedding. I let Nate think I was blissfully unaware. I let him pose for engagement pictures. I let him go to his bachelor party. I let him send me sappy texts about how he couldn't wait to spend the rest of his life with me. And then, 10 minutes before the ceremony, Allison walked into the bridal suite. I should have expected it. She walked up to me, smirking, eyes full of victory, and said, "You'll never be the woman he loves most. I'll always come first." And then, behind her, Nate appeared, and instead of shutting her down, instead of telling her to stop being a psychotic third wheel in his love life, he laughed. He looked at me and said, "She's right, you know." I don't know what it was about those words, but something in me just clicked. This was never going to change. He was never going to put me first, even without the Brad situation. Even if we got married, I'd always be fighting for a place in my own husband's life, and I was done fighting. So, I smiled. I handed Allison my bouquet and whispered, "Enjoy the wedding." Then I turned around, walked out of the plaza, and stepped into a waiting limo where Brad was waiting for me. The door shut behind me with a soft click. The limo's air conditioning blasted against my skin, a sharp contrast to the heavy summer heat outside. Brad sat across from me, dressed in a sleek navy suit, one arm casually draped over the seat. He held a glass of whiskey in his hand, ice clinking softly as he swirled it. "That bad, huh?" he said, raising an eyebrow. I exhaled slow and controlled, feeling the adrenaline surge through me. "Worse," Brad smirked and gestured toward the champagne chilling in the ice bucket between us. "Drink." I didn't even hesitate. I popped the bottle, let it foam over a little, then poured myself a full glass. My hands were steady now, My pulse was slowing. I just walked out of my own wedding, but it wasn't over yet. Brad took a sip of his drink and watched me carefully. So, what's the next move? That was the thing, I wasn't done yet. I didn't just want to leave, I wanted to make sure Nate never forgot what he lost. I wanted him to hurt the way I hurt. I leaned forward, my fingers gripping the delicate stem of my glass. How fast can you ruin his life? Brad grinned back. In the ballroom, chaos was already unfolding. At first, nobody noticed I was gone. Guests were still chatting, sipping champagne, waiting for the ceremony to start. The pianist played soft classical music, the planner rushed around making last-minute checks. Then the whispers started, "Where's the bride? Is there a delay? Why is Allison holding her bouquet?" Nate was standing near the altar, chatting with his groomsmen, pretending to be unbothered. Then one of the hotel staff walked up to him. "Sir," the man said, clearing his throat, "we need to discuss an urgent issue with the billing." Nate frowned. "Billing?" "Yes, the charges on the main card have been declined repeatedly." At first, Nate laughed, thinking it was a mistake, then his expression changed because Brad had already made the call. Within minutes, the vendors were pulling out, the catering service refused to serve another plate, the bartenders stopped pouring drinks, the wedding planner's assistant whispered something in her ear and suddenly she was storming toward Nate, demanding immediate payment. Then the music stopped. Dead silence. The officiant, an old family friend, turned to Nate and said, "Where's the bride?" And that's when the panic finally hit him. His perfect wedding, his perfect day, was falling apart before his eyes, and I wasn't even there to watch it burn. Brad's fingers moved swiftly across his phone screen. "All right, the plaza is shutting everything down, bartenders aren't serving, DJ's packing up. This should be fun." I sipped my champagne. "Not enough." Brad's eyes flicked up to mine, amused. "You're ruthless. You're just figuring that out," he chuckled. "All right, what else?" I leaned back against the leather seat, my mind was racing. Then an idea hit me. "You said he used your money for everything, right?" I asked. Brad nodded. "The apartment, the car, the memberships, all of it." "Take it back." Brad's grin widened. "Now we're talking." He made another call. Within minutes, Nate's luxurious apartment, paid for by Brad, was no longer his. The keys were revoked, the Porsche was on its way to being towed, the credit cards were frozen. By the time Nate figured out what was happening, he'd be homeless, broke, and humiliated. And I wasn't even done yet. Then Brad's phone rang, his expression darkened as he glanced at the screen. He hesitated before answering. What he said sharply, I watched his face carefully, his relaxed smirk vanished, his jaw tightened. Something was wrong. "Are you sure?" he asked. A long pause, then he cursed under his breath and hung up. "What?" I asked. He exhaled and rubbed his jaw. "There's an issue." A bad feeling crept up my spine. "What kind of issue?" Brad met my gaze. Turns out I wasn't the only one Nate was taking money from. I froze. "What?" Brad leaned forward. "There's another man, a bigger deal than me, someone with real power, and he's looking for Nate." I stared at him. "Who the hell are we talking about?" Brad ran a hand through his hair. "Damon Russo." I felt my stomach flip. Everyone in Manhattan knew that name. Damon Russo wasn't just rich, he was dangerous, the kind of man whose money came with unspoken rules, the kind of man you didn't just scam. And Nate had scammed him too. Brad shook his head. "If Nate thinks losing his wedding is bad, he has no idea what's coming next." I took a slow breath. This wasn't just about revenge anymore, this was about survival. The limo was quiet now, except for the low hum of the city outside and the occasional clink of Brad's ice against his glass. I set my champagne down, my fingers gripped the stem a little too tightly. "What do you mean Nate scammed Damon Russo?" Brad exhaled sharply and ran a hand through his hair. "I mean exactly that. Damon isn't like me, he doesn't just throw money around for fun, he expects something in return, and if he doesn't get it, things get messy." I swallowed. "Messy?" Brad gave me a long look. "You ever hear about that hedge fund guy who went missing last year?" I nodded. "Yeah, some billionaire. What was his name?" "It doesn't matter. The point is, he owed Damon money. One day he's on his yacht in the Hamptons, the next day, gone, nobody, no news, just vanished. That's how Damon handles things?" A cold chill ran through me. I had been thinking small, petty revenge, ruining a wedding, freezing his credit, watching him crumble, but this was bigger than me, and Nate had no idea what was coming for him. Nate was unraveling, the realization that I was gone had finally hit him. He had gone from casually checking his watch to full-blown panic mode. "What do you mean she left?" He snapped at the wedding planner, his voice was rising. The poor woman looked like she wanted to disappear. "She walked out, sir. I don't know why. She just left the bouquet with your sister and she left." That's when he turned and really looked. Allison stood there, still clutching my wedding bouquet, her hands were shaking, her face a furious shade of red. "What the hell did you say to her?" Nate demanded. Allison's lips parted, but nothing came out because she knew this was her fault. She had pushed too hard, had wanted too badly to be the most important woman in his life, and now, because of her, he had nothing. That's when his phone buzzed, a text from his building concierge. "Nate, there's an issue with your lease. Please contact management ASAP." Then another, "Porsche Financial Services, we regret to inform you that your account has been terminated due to non-payment. Your vehicle is being repossessed." His stomach dropped, something was seriously wrong. Then another text, this one from a number he didn't recognize. Damon Russo wants to see you. No. His hands went clammy because that was the text that could cost him his life. Brad's phone rang again. He stared at the screen, lips pressing into a thin line. Let me guess, I said. Damon? Brad exhaled. Yeah, and I need to answer this. He pressed the button and put it on speaker. Damon, Brad said smoothly. A deep, gravelly voice filled the car. I hear you've been playing games with my money. I went completely still. Brad shot me a look that said don't speak. Brad shot me a look that said, don't speak. Damon, Brad said calmly, this isn't about me. Then who's it about? Brad's jaw tightened. Nate. A low chuckle. Ah, the little rat. I had a feeling. You see, Brad, I don't like when people waste my time, and your boy Nate, he's wasted a lot of it. Brad leaned forward. What did he do? Damon let out a slow breath. Let's just say he convinced me to invest in something that doesn't exist, a fake deal, a shell company. Thousands of dollars funneled into nothing, and now he thinks he can walk away. I felt my stomach twist. This wasn't just Nate mooching off sugar daddies, this was fraud. Brad ran a hand down his face. How much are we talking? There was a pause, then Damon said, $3 million. I almost choked on air, $3 million. Nate had conned a man like Damon Russo out of millions and thought he could get away with it. I gripped Brad's arm, trying to keep my voice steady. If Damon finds him first, what happens? Brad met my gaze, then turned back to the phone. Damon, let me handle this, Damon laughed. You don't handle things, Brad, you throw money at them. And unfortunately for Nate, I don't want money, I want him. Click. The line went dead. My heart was pounding now. I had walked away thinking I was leaving Nate to financial ruin. I hadn't realized I was leaving him to potentially die. Brad rubbed his temples. This is bad. I nodded, swallowing hard. Yeah, no kidding. Then I straightened. Brad, we have to find him first. Brad blinked. Why the hell would we do that? Because, I said, gripping my champagne glass so tight my knuckles turned white, as much as I hate him, I don't want him dead, Brad sighed, leaning back against the seat. All right, so where do we start? I exhaled, thinking, then grabbed my phone and started typing because if I knew Nate, if I really knew him, there was only one place he'd run to when his world started falling apart, and I was going to be waiting for him when he got there. Brad drove while I sat in the passenger seat staring at my phone, trying to figure out where Nate would go. The limo had been abandoned, we needed something faster, something that wouldn't draw attention. Nate wasn't at the plaza anymore, I knew that because he called me. His name flashed on my screen, I hesitated, then picked up. Where the hell are you? His voice came through frantic, angry, desperate. Funny, I said. I was about to ask you the same thing. Don't play games with me. You need to, you think I'm going to help you? I snapped, after everything? I know about Brad, I know about Damon, you lied to me, Nate, for years. His breath was uneven. I didn't lie. You just thought I was dumb enough to never find out? Silence. Then, Allison said something to you, didn't she? I laughed. Of course he would think his sister was the problem. You have much bigger problems than Allison, I said. Brad gestured for me to put the call on speaker. I did. Nate, Brad said smoothly, Damon wants his money. Silence again. Then, I don't have it. Brad shook his head. Wrong answer. Nate's voice cracked. Please, you have to help me. You still have money, you can, Brad barked out a laugh. Oh, now you want my help? What happened to all that cocky? What happened to Brad won't care? I didn't think it was possible, but Nate sounded smaller now, I messed up. Brad clenched his jaw. Yeah, you did, and Damon's not exactly the forgiving type. I can fix this. I just need time. Brad scoffed, you don't have time. I leaned in, where are you, Nate? Silence again. Then, the apartment. I glanced at Brad, the one you just revoked his lease on? Brad smirked. I turned back to the phone, stay there, we're coming. When we arrived, the doorman wouldn't let us up, Mr. Last name, is no longer a resident here, he said stone-faced. Brad slid him a crisp 100, will only be 10 minutes. The doorman hesitated, then nodded. We took the elevator up. When the doors opened, the hallway was eerily quiet. Then we saw him. Nate was sitting on the floor outside the apartment, knees up, head in his hands, his tie was loosened, his hair disheveled. He looked up when he saw us. You did this, he said to Brad. Brad snorted, you did this to yourself. I crossed my arms, stand up. Nate hesitated, then slowly he did. I stared at him. This was the man I was supposed to marry, and now? Now I felt nothing for him. Did you ever love me? I asked quietly. He flinched, of course I did. I tilted my head. So when you were flying to Ibiza with Brad, or scamming Damon Russo out of millions, was that love? His jaw clenched. Was it love when you laughed at Allison's disgusting comment instead of defending me? Was it love when you used his money to pay for our wedding? Nate exhaled. His shoulders sagged. I didn't want you to know. Know what? That you were a fraud? No, his eyes flashed, that I was never enough. I stilled. He swallowed hard. I grew up watching guys like Brad, like Damon, these powerful men who had everything, and I wanted to be like them. I wanted to be the man who could give you the world. I stared at him, trying to process if that was supposed to be an excuse. That's not love. I said finally, that's vanity. His expression crumpled. I was going to tell you after the wedding. I was going to fix everything. Brad left, pause, comma, you think Damon was going to let you walk away? Nate's hands curled into fists, comma, what do I do? Pause, comma, that's not my problem anymore. Then, I turned to Brad, comma, let's go. Pause, I didn't look back. Nate tried calling, blocked. Allison sent a 3-page email blaming me for ruining her brother's life. I replied with a single sentence, enjoy being the most important woman in his life, blocked. Damon found Nate. I don't know what happened after that, but I do know that Nate left the city overnight, gone, vanished. I didn't ask questions, Brad and I. We kept in touch. Turns out we actually make great business partners. Who knew? And me? I walked away free, no wedding, no fraud, no Nate, just me, a glass of champagne, and the rest of my life waiting, and honestly, I've never felt lighter.